I think it's important for you to understand the difference between New York Stock Exchange stocks and NASDAQ. All right. Just going to do it abbreviated here. These are two separate exchanges and they operate differently. And I need you to understand their differences. In the New York Stock Exchange, every stock has a specialist, and that specialist's job is to basically maintain an orderly market in the stock. Because there is someone who is dominantly controlling the flow of liquidity in the stock, doing his very best to create a smoother, more gradual, slow-moving, orderly market. Nothing unruly, nothing wild. In fact, he's judged on how nicely and how controlled his stock trades. There is someone whose job is to do that. That's called the New York Stock Exchange specialist. And because of that person's job, New York Stock Exchange stocks tend to move very much slower. They tend to move for periods of time in a very gradual way. The New York Stock Exchange traded stocks, they tend to move a lot in salt and pepper ways. So green bar, red bar, green bar, red bar, red bar, green bar, green bar, green bar, red, red, green, green, like that, but small. Little bar increments, gradual grinds. That's the term. The New York Stock Exchange traded stocks will have more gradual grinds. Now, let me see if I can show you. We can go to something like Twitter. All right? Twitter is a New York Stock Exchange traded stock. Now, back in the old days, it was very easy to know which exchange is the stock traded on because all New York Stock Exchange stocks traded with 3 symbols, like JPM or for JP Morgan or MCD for McDonald's. That was easy. And all 4-letter stocks were on the NASDAQ. That's all out of the window. And now New York Stock Exchange has 3-letter symbols as well. 3-letter symbols as well as 4-letter symbols. And Twitter is one of those 4-letter symbols that trades on the New York Stock Exchange. That means that Twitter has a specialist. There's one person who's a dominant figure in the stock who is responsible for making sure Twitter trades smoothly, not unruly, not jagged and whippy and crazy and loco. And if you look at Twitter, you'll see what I'm talking about. Look at the orderliness of the moves. Green, red, red, green, red, green, green, red, green, green, red, green, okay? These two get a little wacky. All right? Specialist brings it back in. All right? Red, green, 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 green. Okay, a series of green. Well, okay. To create an orderly, now there's going to be a series of red. Boom, 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 boom. All right? Series of greens, but control greens. Nothing real crazy and wacky. Now the stock has to rest a little bit. Now it's resting. Green, red, green, green, red, red, green, green. It's resting. So this is an orderly market. Look at the size of the bars. Nothing out of control. It's orderly. It's smooth. It's gradual, which requires patience. Now, if we take something like PayPal, on the other hand, boom, 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 boom. Now, this is the Wild Wild West. This is a NASDAQ traded stock. Why is there more Wild Wild West action on NASDAQ? Because NASDAQ doesn't have a specialist. There is no central figure that is dominant in the stock whose job it is to create an orderly market in PayPal. So now it's just every trader for himself. There's no lawmaker. There's no rule maker. There's no one slowing the action down by selling. There's no one picking the action up by buying just to create that balance in the market. It's just every trader for himself. And this is why wilder movements are on the NASDAQ in general. Now, I'm not saying that you can't get an orderly market in these things at times. Yes. And I'm not saying that at times in the New York, you can't have wild movements like now in AMD. Look. But even that move is still orderly. But it's a little out of character. Now, this speaks to just abnormal move here. And this is what this market is full of right now. This is not normal, traders. This does not happen. Do you understand this? This is rare. This is unique. These types of movements that you're seeing right now in AMD are very, very abnormal. Yes, we have seen them at times, but not all the time like we're seeing now. In fact, almost every day. So we're in unique times. Okay? So, getting back to this New York Stock Exchange theme versus NASDAQ theme. This becomes very important for you because there are certain traders with certain styles and personality types that will be better New York Stock Exchange stocks traders. And there are other traders who have styles and approaches to the market and personalities that match better with NASDAQ. I have always predominantly been a NASDAQ-oriented trader. I want the gain to come fast. It's why I'm explosive out of the open. It's why if something goes wrong, my loss can get big rather quickly. I've got to count on being right way more often than wrong. But NASDAQ can deliver that explosiveness better than New York can, because the explosiveness of a New York Stock Exchange stock shows that the The New York Stock Exchange specialist is being bullied and overpowered, and the specialist doesn't like that. Now, there are moments when the specialist on the New York Stock Exchange can get overpowered. If millions and millions and millions of shares just keep coming in for whatever reason, nonstop, the specialist can't get in front of that to slow that down. They just blast through him. And there are moments like that in your NASDAQ or in your New York Stock Exchange traded stocks. There will be moments that way. But those are the exception. There's always the exception. All right? There's always the exception. So, what type of trader do you think is better with New York Stock Exchange stocks like JD or Twitter? What type of trader? That's right, Henny. Henny's got it right. Pedro's got it right. The trend trader. The moving average trader. Do you understand? The trend trader. The moving average trader. The trader that ignores bars and focuses more on the trend. So the bars are primarily ignored. Like, all right, you buy this, then there's red, no biggie. There's red here, no biggie. No, don't think that's trouble. There's red here. That's just the orderly nature of the market. There's the orderly nature of a market moves like that. Boom. That's orderly. That's what the specialist wants to see. Or even on the downside, orderly. Some greens, some reds, some greens, some reds. All right. If there's too many greens, that has to be offset by a series of reds to create the order, or some type of interrupt to create the order sideways after too much of one color. All right? So look at the move down. Red, green. Red, green. Red, green, green. It's orderly. It's not this. Boom. Oh, I should do that a different color. It's not this. Boom, boom, boom. That's more NASDAQ activity, because the NASDAQ's the wild, wild west. Now, again, this does not mean that you can't have moments in NASDAQ traded stocks that become wild, wild west activity. And it doesn't mean that your NASDAQ stocks can't have orderly periods like PayPal right now. But those are the exceptions. So if it is better to be more of a trend follower, a moving average based trader, that means you also need to be a more patient trader, because you might spend 18 minutes, wait while your stock creeps up 18 minutes. You've been holding the stock for 18 minutes, and it's like, wow, it's only moved 20 cents in 18 minutes. Shoot. It requires more patience. Do you understand? Than perhaps a movement with a NASDAQ-based traded stocks. There's no central figure slowing the velocity of the moves down in the NASDAQ. In the New York, the specialist is slowing the velocity of the moves. The specialist wants smoother, gradual movements. Tell me you understand what I'm talking about. Now, Ryan is asking about the NASDAQ market makers. NASDAQ market makers are theoretically present to provide liquidity. It's different than providing order. You see, the NASDAQ came into existence in 1972. That's the baby exchange. All right. It became known as the exchange you go to when you could not really meet the stricter standards of becoming publicly traded on the New York. And so when technology companies started to explode in the world, in the United States, that was about the time of the 1970s. The first computer for regular people came into being. You've got the Bill Gates of the world coming into fray. You know what I'm saying. And so Steve Jobs and so forth and so on. These companies at the time could not perhaps meet the strict requirements that the New York had to go public there. So they chose NASDAQ, which had lower listing requirements. Microsoft could have, but actually chose NASDAQ. Bill Gates did not like the idea of having a central figure controlling his stock. And he understood that NASDAQ does not have that, and it would be allowed to trade freer. And Bill Gates made an unprecedented choice when he could have gotten listed on the New York Stock Exchange, which had way more prestige than being listed on the NASDAQ. He chose the NASDAQ. And this set off an avalanche of almost every major tech firm choosing NASDAQ over New York. Bill Gates started that whole trend. And now it's glitzier to be accepted on the NASDAQ if you are tech related than on the New York Stock Exchange. Bill Gates changed the whole mindset behind that. So the NASDAQ market maker his purpose is to provide liquidity, but he's really trading to make money for his own account. Now, he has rules he has to abide by for the right to be a market maker in the stock. To have the right to be a market maker, there are rules like his bid and his offer can only be a certain distance apart. There are rules like he cannot back away from his bids and his offers and things of that nature. But for the most part, while having to operate within those rules, his real goal is I need to make money from my account. The New York Stock Exchange specialist is also trying to make money for his account, but his main job is not to make money like the NASDAQ. His main job is to create an orderly market. The other difference, the New York Stock Exchange specialist has access to virtually every single order that goes through the New York Stock Exchange stock, that New York Stock Exchange stock. So that's called the New York Stock Exchange book. He has access to the book. He sees where the stop orders are. If you place a stop on the New York Stock Exchange, the specialist on that stock knows where the stop is, knows where the offers are, knows where the bids are. On the NASDAQ, nobody knows. There is no real central book controlled and seen and known by one individual. It's more wild, wild west. It's more for every man for himself. And that is why you can have greater volatility. So listen, if it is best to be a trend follower on the New York Stock Exchange, to give your stocks room and patience, and to not be afraid of the zigzag way that an orderly stock trades, the way an orderly controlled stock trades, then the trader that is best for NASDAQ stocks are scalpers, right? To be a scalper, to look for a quick gain is better on NASDAQ stocks than on New York. You will be frustrated as a scalper most of the time on New York Stock Exchange. Will there be moments that it's possible? Of course. Nothing is 100% here. All right? Now, what also are some of the tricks? If you like your gains to come quicker and more explosively versus little bar by little gradual bar by little gradual bar over time, you are better trading NASDAQ stocks. And so I've been known for explosivity off the open. All right. And that is why I'm predominantly a NASDAQ trader and have always been. The spreads are a little wider on average. The movements are more explosive on average. That can work for you or against you, mind you. All right. But remember, finding your moments is the key. Volatility can become your friend, and there is more volatility on the NASDAQ in general, but this volatility can be your friend if you do what I explained to you in this session. Find your moments. And so traders, with this knowledge, some of you may have known it before and some not. With this knowledge, with this understanding of the differences between New York and NASDAQ and how that difference reflects in the stock's behaviors on those two exchanges, you have to come to a conclusion as to whether you become a predominant NASDAQ trader, where most of your stocks are NASDAQ, and even the New York ones you have on your list act more like NASDAQ. That's possible. Or you're going to be predominantly a New York Stock Exchange trader. I like it to take more time. I like to apply the patience. I like some of the long power trends that tend to be a lot more prevalent on New York Stock Exchange. Even if the trend only produces 40 cents over an hour, I'm okay with that. I like it. It's more controlled. It's less wild and whippy. then if that's your preference, you're going to lean toward New York. SPYs are completely different, right? That's an ETF. That is not a New York Stock Exchange stock with a specialist. It's very different. Now, here's the ultimate question. Which one are you? Tell me now.